has been 2 weeks since we got back from our trip to Australia, and I want to discuss the things we liked, the things we didn't like, and our favourite moments from each city that we visited. So, up first, let's talk about Melbourne. So can you tell me something you enjoyed about Melbourne?
Okay. I think my favourite thing about Melbourne is the trams.
I'm going to have to think something different now.
Because the free trams and the ease of getting around is amazing. Like, we're not used to that.
On the trams.
On the trams.
Okay, this will link into the bad in a minute. So you're going to say the trams, it's easy to get from A to B using Google Maps. Mm-hmm. It's brilliant, right?
And they do come fairly regularly. There's only one occasion we had where no tram turned up and we ended up walking. But it was so easy just to jump on a tram and go from A to B.
Okay. What I liked about Melbourne was the different types of food that there was. Now, granted, there was a lot of Asian food, but there was all the different types of Asian food, from ramen, from dim sum to what other types? The ice creams and the desserts they had. But all the other cuisines in Melbourne, there is so much. Each day of the week, you can choose something different. And I think that's what was so good, because it was so easy to access different types of food. Whereas here in the UK, especially where we are, you've got sort of 5 choices and you get so much more in Melbourne. The bad. Shall I go first with the bad?
Okay, you can go first.
The bad thing about Melbourne is the grid system. I think the grid system in Melbourne is awful. Traffic is slow. Every junction you have a traffic light.
You did not enjoy driving in Melbourne, did you?
I got beeped at a few times, but it takes so long to get through the centre because it's so stop-start because of the grid system. And I think it is awful. It works great for the trams, awful for actual traffic and getting around by any other means.
Okay. The thing I didn't like about Melbourne, for me, Melbourne was too busy.
It's too busy.
It was too busy.
Does that also link in with the grid system, though?
Possibly. It wasn't necessarily the traffic for me as much, though, that I just found I don't think, because we don't live in a really large city, it maybe is something we're not used to, and that's maybe why I found it more overwhelming. But even just when you'd be like crossing over at a crossing, and there's so many people coming towards you all the time, and a lot of time people don't get out of the way, and it was just you were in a crowd a lot of the time. Even just walking down the road, you did get annoyed a few times. But I found that really hard to adjust to, is how busy it was, because we're not used to it.
Well, there you go. That's what we did and didn't like. Your favourite moment from Melbourne. Melbourne we spent the most time in because of the football and things. What was your favourite moment?
So my favourite moment in Melbourne is actually something I never thought I'd say was my favourite moment. The MCG tour.
The MCG tour?
Because I was expecting to hate it. And actually, I really enjoyed it. The tour guide was so informative. It was really interesting. She kept me interested, which I really didn't think I would be. And actually, from not being into Aussie rules before we went away, I really, really enjoyed it. And the stadium is amazing to look at. And yeah, it was just a day that I didn't think I'd enjoy and really loved.
Good. I'm going to say my favourite moment, please tell me if I missed something off. Seeing Robbie Williams at the MCG on Grand Final day, and the pre-match to the Grand Final was my favourite moment. Yeah. I cannot say the whole of the Grand Final because of obvious reasons of my Swans getting destroyed. But the whole pre-match was the
whole atmosphere there.
That blew me away up until about 5 minutes into the game. So that is what we liked, what we didn't like, and our favourite moments from Melbourne. So now, on to Sydney. So let's look at what we did like about Sydney.
Okay.
Go on.
The thing I liked about Sydney? Chinatown.
Chinatown. You know they have Chinatown in all the places,
I know, but I think it's because we stayed right next to Chinatown.
Okay.
I loved Chinatown. It's not something we get, like, locally to us. We spent a lot of time while we were in Sydney in Chinatown, I think.
Yeah, we did.
We spent a lot of time there, and I really liked just exploring the night they had the market there. I just really liked Chinatown.
Okay, what I really liked about Sydney, it was I might do a couple here. I really like that it wasn't as busy as Melbourne. It wasn't quite as quiet as Adelaide. So it was that sort of fine mix of both. And I think that allowed you to cater for different sort of people's what they enjoy. I'm trying to think of the word. The cats are about to fight. Stop it.
He's now just laying on top of her.
Little mid-video image of the cats. So that was great. That you had a bit of everything in Sydney.
Sydney was very clean, wasn't it, as well?
What you also had in Sydney was it had the landmarks. Mm-hmm. It has the landmarks that Melbourne doesn't. I know you've got the MCG, but it's not there for everyone to
Like London's got Big Ben, Sydney's got the Opera House and the bridge.
And it's so close in the middle, easy for everyone to get to.
I'm not actually sure if I could say, apart from the MCG, what does Melbourne have? What is the big landmark? Unless we missed it.
I don't know. But Sydney has that. And some of the views, when we went to the other side of the harbour and looking across at night time, that was incredible. And so it had a mix for everyone, something for everyone, basically. Now, things I didn't like about Sydney, it's almost the opposite of Melbourne in the fact that the trams in Sydney, they're okay.
There's not really many, is there?
It's not quite the same.
It's not like a whole circuit like
No, actually,
Melbourne.
that's not what I was going to say. What I didn't like about Sydney is because of the way Sydney is, the geography of Sydney, it's like a cauliflower, isn't it? So it's not as easy, this does link with trams and the transport, it's not as easy to get from one location to another. So for example, the easiest way to get to Manly was on the ferry. And I'm not good with water. Or heights, or
there was too much water in Sydney for you.
And so therefore the transport time, if you're driving, it takes you longer to get places because you have to go over bridges or through tunnels. And so it's not as easy to get from one suburb to the other.
Really?
Just having a scratch. What did you not like?
About Sydney. There's not really much I didn't like about Sydney. Like, apart from the things you said, like, the trams weren't the same as the other two cities we went to. There's not really anything I didn't like about Sydney. I really liked Sydney. I guess the only thing that dampened my spirits, quite literally, in Sydney was we only had one day of good weather. We had that very, very wet day.
We did have one very wet day. We had a couple of days.
Oh, I guess the Blue Mountains was a nice day.
Blue Mountains was nice. The first day was okay when we went to the Chinese Garden of Friendship.
Unfortunately, I really remember that day.
Actually, the start of that day.
Yeah, because that was that afternoon it rained. It was very wet. That's the only thing that I would have liked more time in Sydney.
For Charlie, Sydney
really
was great.
Yeah.
Sydney was great. Favourite moments in Sydney? My favourite moment, it has to be the Sydney Swans versus Collingwood. The whole experience of that semi-final, prelim final as you guys call it. It was incredible. My heart was going, the highs and lows, and back to being euphoric. It was...
I actually thought you were going to have a heart attack at one stage.
That was my favourite moment.
I don't know what to pick, because that was a real highlight of the holiday.
Which you didn't expect again.
No, again, I didn't expect that at all. The Blue Mountains, for me, was breathtaking, amazing. It's between Blue Mountains and the night where we went after the SCG. After the game, when we just went exploring and saw the Opera House at night, Sydney Harbour Bridge at night, we saw Luna Park. We got to do a lot of the sights at night, and I really loved seeing everything lit up. And seeing the city at dark was amazing.
Well, there you go. There is our good, bad, and our favourite moments of Sydney. So, last but not least, Adelaide. So what was the main thing you liked about Adelaide?
Okay, the main thing I liked about Adelaide, how much it felt like home. The similarities to at home. I think Adelaide, being the smallest of the three, felt more like home. And James's house. I'm going to add James's house into that as well.
So we stayed at a guy called James's house, and it was awesome to be there, and that was in Glenelg.
I loved it.
And I would sort of say the same. I would sort of say the same in the best bit about Adelaide for us was that it was so much like home. Some of the streets we went down could have been English streets, because I assume this is what people have said, is because Adelaide is the city that wasn't built by convicts and things, and therefore it might have those more similarities. It was just a home away from home.
It may have helped that we weren't staying in a hotel as well.
Yeah.
It was maybe a different feel because we were actually in a residential area as opposed to in a hotel in the city centre. So that was nice.
What else do I like about Adelaide? It was pleasant. It was green. It was
less
there was
high rise.
Yeah, it was
Which
less
we probably
high rise.
we both really liked because we find that quite overwhelming.
But you had, not saying you don't have this in the other places, but there was a lot more nature and trees and it was just more of a relaxing lifestyle. So I could certainly see why people who maybe retire would go there. People with just...
And we loved Glenelg, didn't we?
People that want more relaxed...
One visitor. There's another one here.
People that want more relaxed lifestyles. And, it doesn't take that long to get from Adelaide to Melbourne, Adelaide to Sydney and whatnot.
No.
So it's still accessible to other places. So what did you not like?
I've just suddenly thought about something I didn't like about
Oh, okay.
Adelaide. The lack of flights to Adelaide. That's what I don't like about Adelaide, because it made me go to Canberra.
Yeah, so we obviously had the problem where a flight was cancelled to Adelaide and we had to go to Canberra.
Because there wasn't many even other flights to Adelaide that day, so...
So maybe that is a bad thing, that maybe access in and out of Adelaide isn't as good as the other cities. I don't think we have enough experience to say. What do I not like about Adelaide? I could see... So this wasn't a complaint that I had, but I can see if you're there for a longer period of time, maybe there isn't as much to do. Maybe.
Possibly.
But then again, I didn't necessarily
We
think...
didn't get long enough there, did we?
No, but I didn't necessarily think Melbourne had a lot to do, really, on the grand scheme of things. But I'm not actually having that as a bad thing. I'm not even going to say anything because I don't think we thought of anything bad about
No,
Adelaide.
literally, me complaining about the flights is just
Yeah.
the thing that happened to us.
Favourite moment in Adelaide?
Holding a koala at Cleveland.
Holding a koala. That would be...
I've already got frames for the pictures. I'm putting the pictures up on the wall.
My favourite moment in Adelaide...
Now, if you don't say this thing I'm thinking of in my head, I'm going to be like...
I had been
gonna
going
be
on
angry.
about it for months and months and months. Visiting the fruit choc shop and getting loads of fruit chocs.
And weighing all our suitcases down on the way home.
Definitely. Definitely. Fruit chocs, there you go. Fruit chocs. Now, let's move on to the whole of Australia in general. So when we talk about general Australia, I mean the areas we went to. So sort of Victoria, we only tiny bit of New South Wales and a tiny bit of South Australia. We're not talking about the rest of it. So
We're going to talk about what we
ignore that.
experienced.
Now, the one thing that I think we both agree on, which is good about Australia, is the hospitality and the generosity of people. And I know we keep mentioning this, but we were sort of blown away by it. And
It's incredible.
our
Absolutely incredible.
trip became what it was because of the assistance and help from so many people that that allowed us to do things that we wouldn't have been able to do without them, without going into specifics. So that is a massive, massive positive. I know you were going to say that, so I'm sorry I took that. I would also say that this is a pro and a con.
Okay.
Distance is bad, right? Because it takes so long to get everywhere. But the positive that has come out of it has made us realise that for the trips that may take an hour and a half, 2 hours for us in the UK that we wouldn't ever do.
We wouldn't do that on a day trip.
No, unless we
Ever.
really had to. It now makes us realise, actually, we can go a little bit further afield in the UK. You know, even if it's only an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we can see a lot more of what we have in the UK, which Australia has taught us that. However, if you're living in it all the time, might suck a little bit.
I have got one thing I liked.
Go on.
I liked the ease of domestic flying.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's probably similar to our train system in a way, if you know what I mean.
Maybe.
But I liked how easy it was just to jump on a plane somewhere.
I
And
think so.
actually, I know we spent a fair bit of time in airports from time to time, but all the flights were easy. The service on board the airlines was good.
Mostly okay, yeah.
And I actually think the ease of domestic flying, I know it needs to be for the size of the country, but was really good.
Yeah, like you said though, it equates to our sort of train network, doesn't it? Because they don't, in Australia, you don't have the facilities necessary to have trains from one city to the other. You have trains sort of around the suburbs, but not from cities to another, unless it's the real long.
And actually, I didn't think our domestic flights were that expensive either.
No, ours
Not
were pretty
especially
good.
in consideration to how much we would pay for a train for just an hour journey here and things like that.
So what did you not like about Australia? Be honest. We're honest people.
It's a weird one. The one thing I didn't like, I guess my perception and most English people's perception of Australia is how hot Australia is. I was a little bit disappointed by the weather. I understand now the time of year we went, and I understand winter coming into spring. It was cold.
That was a shock.
I think it was more of a shock when we first got off the plane and I was like, this is not warm. I was a bit like, I should have brought my coat with me. I think I didn't do my research on the weather. That's all I'll say. It was partially my fault I didn't do the research on the weather, but it is. Our perception of Australia is always that it's hot.
It's always hot.
We don't think about it being cold.
But you don't learn any different, do we?
No, that's the thing. We
Okay.
were only ever taught it's hot.
Right, my negative. I joked about this a lot of the time when I was in Australia, but the Australians say they don't like when Americanisms are coming into the language and the way of life, and I get that because I don't like Americanisms coming into the English language, should I say. The problem I had though was that while Australians are saying that they don't like it, they're actually still doing it. They're saying the Americanized words. They are doing Americanized things. And it's just a little bit, you say you don't like it, but you're still doing it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's just, when you're in an environment, you don't quite
If you're doing it this way, you probably don't realise.
Yeah. And from coming from the UK, that's the one thing I've noticed. So there we go.
Okay. I have another thing quickly I don't like.
Okay.
They're magpies.
Magpies.
I've seen loads of magpies since I've been home, and I'm looking at ours like, oh, you're quite cute,
So
little magpie.
if anyone doesn't realise, I have mentioned this a fair few times, but in Canberra, this is one reason
Which
why
we didn't want to go to Canberra.
This is one reason why I like Canberra and Charlie doesn't, is we were riding our electric scooters and Charlie got swooped by a magpie. It was hilarious for me, traumatising for Charlie. So we will leave you on that. Let us know what you think of what we liked, what we disliked, if it's something that you agree with. Maybe it's something you disagree with. Let us know in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we will catch you next time.